In the following tutorial, we're going to take a look at using Illustrator and Flash together. Now you need to open up Illustrator CS4 and FlashCS4 because any other versions of Illustrator and Flash don't work as well as the new versions. So if you go to Illustrator and you draw something, typically one of the things that you want to be aware of is you want to set up your Illustrator file to be the same size as your file that you're working on in Flash, just so you get the appropriate sizes set up. So I'll use web, and let's just change this size to 550 by 400, so it's the standard Flash size. That way we get to make sure that anything that we're putting on our screen here, it's now at 100%, is basically going to fit the same size over here. So I'll begin just by creating a very simple object. And let's change the color somehow. Yay. So I just clicked on the color, given it something. It's got a stroke as well. You'll notice it's got the ability to change the stroke settings and everything else here. And if I copy this and I go over to Flash, I can paste that object very easily. Now, this particular object has pasted in, if I go to Properties, as a drawing object, which is great. And notice it didn't put anything in my library. It's just a simple drawing object. Now, if I want to add a little bit more complexity to this, maybe I want to add a little bit of style to my line. So maybe I'll do a dashed line of some sort. So let's copy that, go to Flash, and paste. Now, I should have pointed out the very first time that you paste, it takes a long time. The second time, you'll notice it goes much quicker. Now, notice this. This time, it actually came in, but it came in as a bitmap, and that's because that dotted line. So that dotted line is really not a good thing, and you have to be aware of when things come in that it might be because they're just not meant to come into Flash, at least that same way. What you can do, though, is you can either use expand or expand transparency to convert it all to regular vector graphics. Then you can copy it, go back to Flash, and paste. And now it'll paste it as a vector graphic as you expected it to be. It's now just a grouped bunch of vectors. So kind of cool that you can do that. You can, of course, go in and modify the different shapes that are inside that one object. So anyway, I'm going to go back to Illustrator and delete that object, and let's experiment with a little bit more. Now let's say that you want to use something like a gradient. So I've got a gradient there. I can copy that gradient, go to Flash, and paste. And you'll see that it will actually see gradients as well. So it'll give you the ability to edit this gradient in Flash. Now I can't say that every single time it'll work exactly like this, but typically gradients in Illustrator will come over to Flash and work just great. Now when it won't work great is when you've applied that gradient through some sort of effect. Such as if I go to my graphic styles and I start playing around with some of the different graphic styles that might be there. You'll see here's a graphic style that has some sort of gradient. If I copy that, go to Flash, it may come in or it may not. Looks like this one did indeed come in. But let's say that I want to bring in something a little bit fancier. So I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. I'm going to go to the graphic styles and open up the graphic style libraries and find ones for buttons and rollovers and see if I can add a graphic style to something. I think I like that one there. That looks kind of more like the Web 2.0 style. So I'm going to copy that, go to Flash, and paste. This time, you'll see that what it actually does is create a bitmap. And that bitmap is put inside this folder. So there's the bitmap. And the properties say bitmap. So it's actually converted that object into a bitmap. And you should be aware of that when you're copying and pasting. So there are lots of other effects of graphic styles, I should point out, that are here that you should really check out. There's a lot of great styles. Some of the styles will come over great as vector and some of them will not. Typically, they're not a great idea to use. Though, you just have to be aware of it. Now, you can also use fonts. So if I say my logo and use some sort of cool font, So here's my cool font. Of course, if you copy this into Illustrator, or into Flash, it may copy in as live text. If you have, of course, in Illustrator, everything converted to outlines, then when you copy and paste, it will come in as regular outlines in Flash as well, which means that you can do things such as break it apart and then possibly fill other areas as needed, which is kind of nice. Or cut it if you want to, which is kind of a creative way of working with your text here in Flash. But you can kind of do that in here, and you really can't do it in Illustrator very easily. All right, now the next thing that you might be doing in here is, let's say that you have a cool font that you want to use as a icon or something. Now, this is one of the things I really suggest. There are these great dingbats out there, and dingbats are a great way of getting a cool little icon that you want to be able to use, or even a little character. What you want to do is download the zip file and extract the file, because you have to get access to the file that's inside the zip file, which is a font file, and that's the font file right here. Pictoseri. There we go, 4. And so now what we need to do is go to the Start menu, go to Settings, Control Panel. We're going to choose Fonts. And you can choose Install New Font and find that font if you want, which I don't really like going through here. Or you can just find the font and drag it into the font folder. So that will drag that in. I've already installed the font, so it's there. So now I can close that. Go back to Flash or Illustrator. Type out some characters. I guess I should really have a whole bunch of different characters and change to that font. Let's see what we get. Looks like I have some fun characters here, so I like that one. So here's my good little character. I can not break that apart, but convert to outlines. Let's see, anyone else? That one looks pretty cool. Create outlines. Get rid of these other ones. So I've got my little icons that I can paste into Flash and use. And of course, I can then go into Flash itself and start doing things like adding cell shading to my object. And if I add cell shading of some sort, I can make him look a little bit more like a real alien and give him a little bit more details, little indentations in his ear, little rounding to his face, little chin or something to him. And I can make a much more exciting alien, of course, but it gave me a nice starting point with that icon. And you can also, take away certain elements and animate them separately. You could break him apart so that he has a hand, and you can move those if you like. So there's a lot you can do with these icons. Now you can also, of course, use Office Online clipart. So you want to make sure that you go to Office Online using Internet Explorer. You can't use Firefox. And you want to search for clipart only. And once you are in clipart only, you can copy one of the icons, go to Illustrator, paste, and you'll see it comes in really, really large. Scale it down as needed. And you can, of course, copy and paste into Flash. Now, I'm going to be doing this a couple times, and I didn't notice I was inside that group right now. Should be aware of that. It's accidentally inside the group, so I didn't want to see it. So I'm going to do this one more time. The reason why is because anytime we use clipart from Illustrator, we definitely need to go to Path, Simplify. Simplify it to about 97% 96, 97% or so. And notice we've gone from 8,000 points to 400 points. And that is a huge difference. Now I can copy that, paste it into Flash, and you may not see much of a difference in Flash, but there is. There's a difference of, well, 7,600 points. This one has 400, that one has 8,000. And that is a big difference to Flash. So do make sure that you optimize your files. Now you can optimize things even more in Flash if you want. If I break this apart all the way, I can now go up to Insert, Modify, Shape, Optimize. And you'll see it kind of optimized it a little bit. So it had 580 curves, it now has 440 curves. So it did optimize it a little bit. It may have changed it just slightly. You have to be aware when you optimize things, you can alter the look a little bit. But you want to have your vector graphics that are complex, especially ones that are this complex, pretty well optimized in Flash when you use them. Now, the last thing that I want to show you real quick is that Illustrator has some really cool brush tools that you can use in here. If you go to the brushes, you'll see that there are all these brushes that are used in here that can do some really neat things, and you can create your own brushes. And there are some techniques. Actually, let's see what we have. Arrows, Artistic, Paintbrush. There we go. There are some techniques where you animate brushes like this in Illustrator in order to take into Flash, like a cat's tail or something like that, when you're trying to get a little bit more complexity. In order to demonstrate how that's kind of done, I'm going to just create a very simple stacked thing here. Maybe I need to alter that shape just a little bit. Just using default colors that are here. Alright, so I'm going to turn this into a brush, so I can select it, drag it over to my brushes, make it an art brush, and that will give it the proportional. I can't remember if I want proportional or not. I'll just do OK on proportional. I can always change that later if I don't want to. And in order to make something a brush, all you have to do is select it. So there you go. I've made that object a brush. Now I'm going to duplicate that and just alter it a little bit. So you'll see it's kind of moving that tail a little bit. It's like if I had the tail of something. And now in order to create the animation to go into Flash, I'm going to delete some of these objects. What I want to do is separate them a fair amount and then use the blend tool to blend the two together. Now you'll see that what it does is it creates the stages between the two. And then what you do, it's kind of weird, but you're going to select everything, go to Object, Expand Appearance. Oh, I might need to do Flatten Transparency. Flatten Transparency. There we go. Flatten Transparency. And then you're going to have to go in and select each kind of group separately to copy into Flash. But what it does is it gives you a more organic animation for really complex objects that you've done this way. And so that's just something I wanted to point out in between Illustrator and Flash. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Otherwise, that's the end of the tutorial, and I hope this has helped you realize some of the things that you can do between Illustrator and Flash. Thanks.